I'm John Miller, an office worker. Started working right after high school. So at 23, I'm in my 5th year. Being the youngest since joining, and with no part-time experience, my seniors were all kind to me, struggling but trying. I've gotten used to the job over the years. Then, in my 5th spring, I got my first project led, but it led to turmoil.
Hi, I'm Emily Johnson. Nice to meet you.
The first day of the new fiscal year, that's how the fresh college grad greeted. With her striking looks and confident smile. Not shy at all, she seemed at ease from day one. No wonder, as she's the daughter of the company's president. She flaunted her status, her attitude too grand for a newbie. Some male colleagues didn't mind her looks, but her over-familiarity shocked everyone, except me. I wasn't just surprised by this new employee's boldness, but because I already knew her.
Wow, Miller, still here. Tougher than I thought.
That sarcastic tone. I had heard it all too often before. Unpleasant memories flooded back. Yeah, Johnson, still going strong.
You were so plain and clumsy. Now look at you, dyeing your hair and all. A late bloomer in the corporate world. Hilarious.
Yes, she was my high school classmate. Hair dyeing was banned in high school. I'm not trying to debut or anything, as I retorted modestly.
Oh, talking back now. How cheeky.
Cheeky? We're the same age. Ironically, I'm technically her senior here. But to Johnson, such details are irrelevant. Whether newbie or not, she thinks she can get away with anything as the boss's daughter. Always haughty, arguing seemed pointless. Any comeback would just be met with her superior attitude. I've been through this many times in high school. I first met Emily Johnson in sophomore year. From the start of the new term, she stood out, topping the girls' groups. I, on the other hand, had a few friends but wasn't particularly noticeable, just average or slightly below. I never even thought of interacting with Johnson or her clique, but from the get-go, she was sarcastic to me.
Hey, is that fun?
I was into card games then, playing with friends during breaks. Johnson, having spied on us, came over just to say that, well, yeah, it's fun. I replied, and she laughed loudly.
Seriously, geeks are like kids, playing such childish games.
Had she approached me just to say that, I was baffled and felt a mix of disdain. From my view, wearing makeup and jewelry against the rules and getting scolded by teachers daily seems more childish. I blurted out without thinking, and Johnson was furious. She took it badly, and from then on, she targeted me, tossing barbs daily. I shouldn't have said that. I regret it, but it was too late. Avoiding any retort, hoping she'd tire of me, only seemed to make her think she'd won. We ended up in the same class in senior year, and the snide remarks continued. It's mentally draining, being snarked at every day. The worst was about my job.
Hey, heard you got a job.
I hadn't told many, so how did Johnson know? I answered vaguely, well, yeah.
Pitiful, not going to college. Are you poor? I'm so glad I'm me.
Sigh. Her bragging was irrelevant to my job news. As I waited for her to leave, she dropped a bombshell.
I heard from a teacher. Your job's at my dad's company.
This was a shock. I knew her dad was a CEO, and I'd researched the company for the interview. But I never imagined they were related. Just when I thought I was free from Johnson after getting the job, it turns out to be at her dad's company. I couldn't hide my dismay.
Laughable, you look so upset. Don't worry, I'm joining after college, but you won't last 5 years. We won't work together.
She laughed loudly. She kept belittling me until graduation.
Going to dad's company. I don't have to try, unlike you. His company is trendy, but you'll stick out like a sore thumb.
Enduring till graduation, I thought I was finally free from Johnson. 5 years flew by quickly. I knew she'd join the company someday. Despite knowing we'd meet again, I stayed because I didn't want to feel defeated. I could have changed jobs to avoid seeing Emily Johnson again. But if I wasn't there when she arrived,
I knew you wouldn't be here.
She'd surely laugh and say so. Just imagining that was unbearable. So I decided to grow remarkably before she joined to prove her wrong. That's what I strived for over 5 years. But reality didn't go as planned. Johnson joined the company and was assigned to the project I was leading. Honestly, I didn't want to deal with her, but being close meant more opportunities to show her up, so I was even more determined. However, she was as arrogant as ever, perhaps even more so than in high school.
Miller letting. That's worrying. Shouldn't I do it?
She'd interject during meetings.
Is this discussion even meaningful? Why don't we just do it this way?
Or make off-target suggestions as if she was right, then leave early or arrive late without apologizing. Her selfishness quickly became company gossip, but she didn't care, always saying,
Dad would forgive me. I'm the president's daughter, so I'm special.
no one could reprimand her because of her father's position. I realized it didn't matter how well I worked, she'd never acknowledge it, and proving her wrong seemed impossible. So, I shifted my focus to ensuring this project, my first as chief, was a success. That became my new goal. But then,
See you. Work hard.
that day, the moment it hit quitting time, Johnson stood up to leave. It was her right, and we're not a company that demands constant overtime. But still, hey, Johnson, what about the report due today? I had to ask since she hadn't submitted a document to that day, assigned weeks ago.
Oh, I forgot. Miller, you do it.
Her response left me no choice but to speak up. No, that's impossible. I have my own workload, and everyone else is busy too. You need to complete your tasks responsibly. I wouldn't normally confront someone like this, but it's different with work. It affects colleagues and clients. She didn't like my lecture and raised her voice.
Complaining about working past time is too much. I was busy, okay. It's your fault for giving me too much work before the deadline.
I knew I was responsible for the workload distribution, but honestly, I knew Johnson wouldn't work diligently. I only asked her for basic tasks, and she spent most of her time on her phone or browsing cosmetics online. So when she said she was too busy, I couldn't just agree. Busy? What exactly did you do today? Can you say that in front of other employees who worked hard all day? Even Johnson, usually quick with words, fell silent and glared at me. Then, finally,
Whatever, I can't. I have a mixer tonight. Overtime is out of the question. If you keep being annoying, I'll tell Dad. You could be fired just like that.
she spat those words and headed for the door. Many colleagues, fearful of her threats, couldn't confront this new employee. But that's wrong. Everyone's working hard. It's absurd that I, who works seriously, might get fired, while she, who plays around, acts superior. If that really happened, it would be too ridiculous. Realizing it was futile to argue, I contemplated what to do next. I had expected to work late, but now I wondered if I'd need to pull an all-nighter. I've been pushing myself too hard, trying not to burden others with overtime. That's why I couldn't handle these troubles effectively. This trouble showed that maybe I did mismanage the workload. Perhaps I couldn't complain if I got fired. That's when I felt weak and defeated.
Ouch.
A voice from the door caught my attention. There stood an unfamiliar person, a middle-aged man in a clean, smart suit, a stranger to me. As I wondered who he was,
Dad, why are you?
I heard Johnson. Then I realized this was the president of the company whom I was meeting for the first time. If the president, who dotes on his daughter, witnessed this scene, things might resolve quickly. Am I about to be fired immediately? Frozen in fear, I couldn't imagine what the president would say next. But then, I noticed something odd about Johnson's behavior.
This is, well,
I thought she'd claim I was bullying her and get me fired, but she seemed flustered. Then, no need to say anything. The president spoke firmly. Johnson fell silent, unusually compliant for her. It was the first time I'd seen her so obedient. Of course, you're fired as of today. The office fell dead silent at the president's next words. So, it's come to this. The president is human after all. Seeing his daughter upset, he wouldn't feel good. But was I wrong? What was the right course of action as a chief? It's too late for regrets, but I still felt indescribably frustrated. Yes, I'm sorry, I replied quietly. I had a lot I wanted to argue, but talking back wouldn't change anything, especially to Johnson's father. I had given up when.
No, you have nothing to apologize for.
The president's words made me look up in surprise. What? There stood the president with a look of disappointment and a pale-faced Johnson.
The one getting fired is not you, but you, Emily. Did I ever say that being the president's daughter means you can do whatever you want? It seems you're mistaken. The reason I allowed you in this company wasn't to give you free reign, but to help you learn about society, as hiring you elsewhere would be too troublesome. It was meant for your social education, not as a free pass to misbehave. It seemed that message didn't get through.
Witnessing this, I realized the president was nothing like I had imagined. I had assumed he indulged and spoiled Johnson, but he seemed rather strict and she looked tense.
I'm sorry, Dad. I'll be serious from now on.
Sorry, Emily, but as a president, I can't employ someone who behaves selfishly without regard for others.
Even as Johnson tearfully apologized, the president showed no signs of forgiving her. He ignored her, turning instead to apologize to us employees.
I'm deeply sorry for the trouble my daughter caused. Please let me handle the remaining work she left.
I was taken aback by his offer and initially hesitated, but he insisted, so I reluctantly agreed. Johnson continued to sob and plead for her job back, but the president never relented. Her usually haughty demeanor was gone, replaced by a pitiful sight, but given her past actions, no one came to her defense. Thanks to the president, we managed to complete the documentation and the project was a success. It was rare for the president, usually at the overseas branch, to be at the main office. Our superiors were stunned to see him doing what was essentially a newcomer's job. I was nervous the whole time, sweaty hands and all, but working alongside him, I realized he was a strict yet caring and wonderful leader. It was incomprehensible how his daughter turned out the way she did. Eventually, Johnson was fired. I heard through the grapevine, so I'm not certain, but apparently her father said if she couldn't make it here, the next step would be temple training. Perhaps she's undergoing waterfall training now. I don't know her current whereabouts, but I hope this experience has changed her, even just a little, to be more like an average person.